نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الحدي حدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل محدثة بدعة وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Alhamdulillah, it is an honor to be amongst you today. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless this gathering. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive us for anything that we have done or carried on up until this day. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us forgiveness on this day. And may He relieve us of any of those sins, whether they be major or minor, from the last Jumu'ah to this Jumu'ah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He tells us in the Quran, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem, He mentions, فَذَكِرْ إِن نَفَعَتِ الذِّكْرَ سَيَذَّكَّرُ مَن يَخْشَى وَيَتَجَنَّبُهَا الْأَشْقَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, remind mankind, in the case that the reminder may profit or benefit them. Furthermore, He also says, the reminder will be received by him who has taqwa, the one who fears Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, it goes on further to say, وَيَتَجَنَّبُهَا الْأَشْقَى. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, but it will be avoided by the wretched. So a beneficial reminder will always penetrate the hearts of one whose heart is soft to the remembrance of Allah and the truth. And it is a heart that is protected from anything that will turn it away from the remembrance of Allah, and also protected from the lies of shaitan, or anyone that is connected or who represents what shaitan represents. So I hope and pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala softens each and every one of our hearts today to hear this reminder that I want to bring to you today by the grace and mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because truly, yes, we are here today, but each and every one of us should have, if not much, but some type or an inkling amount of pain in your hearts today, right now. As a matter of fact, the whole ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam should have some pain in their heart for the things that are taking place around the world. When you have brothers and sisters in your own homes, if someone harms them, you would try to protect them in your immediate home, the homes that you dwell in right now here in Texas. You would want to protect them if someone came knocking at your door. Better yet, let's say they didn't knock at the door. Let's just say they barged in and didn't even knock. They kicked the door in, and they came in and they sought to harm you or your parents or your children or your families. What would you do? obviously we would respond, correct? That's what we're supposed to do. As Muslims, we are supposed to protect our houses, our homes, as well as the thing that you will be questioned about. Because on the day of Yawm al-Qiyamah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will ask you about how did you take care of your health. Your health is inseparable from your body because it is your health. It's inseparable from your body. Likewise, Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he said that his ummah, the ummah of Muhammad, it is like one body. That when any part of that body is affected, then the rest of it rushes to grant it its relief. Or at least it feels the effect of the pain that the body is going through. We should. Oftentimes, we don't sometimes feel or recognize this pain, if you understand what I mean, because we have been desensitized to recognize when we have been infected with a venomous bite from maybe a snake or something that has bitten us. Maybe we have grown we have built up a type of defense to the point to where the effect of the bites of the snake, it doesn't harm us anymore. And this is a snake bite. But the deen of Islam is the anti-venom. Implementing Islam according to the way we are supposed to implement Islam, it is the antidote and it is the anti-venom of the bite that we face, whether it be from a venomous snake or from the tongue of someone whose tongue is just as venomous as a snake. I'm pretty sure you guys understand what I'm saying here. We have a home, and in this home, we have a body or bodies that have to be protected. If they are not protected, then you will be wiped out, and so will your home. And then you only have yourselves to look at as to the reason, why didn't you rush to do something about it? Because the first line of defense, if you're the men of the houses that we live in, as we have homes and we have our families, we are the first line of defense. The men, to protect our families. The question is, are we real men? Are we following or carrying out our responsibilities as being real men to protect our homes? Those beautiful homes that we like to lavishly sit in at times. You know, when we are blocked from the elements of nature and the cold wind, when it's blowing cold, we have heat in here. Or whenever it's very hot outside, we have these air conditioners and AC units. We're sitting very comfortable. But what happens when someone comes to destroy that comfort? What will you do about it? Will we just turn a blind eye and act like it's not happening? As Muslims, we have an obligation. We have a duty to Allah and those who say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. We have a duty. We have a duty as Muslims to not allow ourselves to be distracted by this comfortable living that we have to the point to where we don't respond as Muslims. Maybe some of you are scratching your head and want to know, where am I going with this? Well, we have to read between the lines. We have a body of Muslims that are one body, and a portion of that body has been affected. And if we don't do something about it the right way, then the infection will spread. Make no mistake about it. The infection will spread. It already has. To the point to where it feels like for some of the people who are directly affected, they feel like there is no way to contain this infection. They're asking, where is the help? Where is the antidote? We need to be inoculated from this disease that is spreading amongst us. And sadly as it may be, some of us are calling upon help from other than Allah, which actually causes the body to become even more infected. But oftentimes this is what happens when what? When we lose our connection with Allah. I often ask many of my students and the children and those who we teach in the masjids, we ask them, how can you worship Allah? How can you praise Allah? How can you thank Allah? How can you turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala if you don't know Him? If you have no connection? When the connection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is severed, that is your umbilical. That is your lifeline. If that connection is severed, then you will get no help. Because the help comes from Allah. But it's sad, it's often sad to see sometimes people crying out, instead of saying, Ya Allah, help us, or making dua, not saying that there aren't many who aren't doing that. I'm just saying that what you do and what I do that is not connected to what is pleasing to Allah, it has a direct effect upon every single body in this ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It has a direct effect. Every single time when we walk outside this door and we as men who refuse to lower our gaze, it has an effect on the bigger ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When we refuse to talk to our fellow brothers who are sitting beside us, or when we see them in the marketplace and we say assalamu alaikum, when we don't even return salams, this is something that will affect us. This will cause a disease to spread. These are the things that affects us on a bigger scale. It is the smaller things that we overlook and we don't do that causes it causes havoc upon the ummah. Believe you me, it does. When we put off making salah to busy ourselves in doing something that is not going to bring us closer to Allah, these are things that will have that effect. When we don't nurture our children or our society or our communities on reestablishing a connection between ourselves and Allah, because obviously there's a disconnect. There's a disconnect. When we raise our hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah doesn't help when we raise our hands, remember, there's a time that's going to come, and it may be now, that we will raise our hands to Allah and Allah will not answer us because of what we are doing. It's easy to point the finger out of anger and frustration. It's easy at those moments to do things that will cause more harm. That's why we have to be smart about how we go about doing things to fix this poison that is in our system, in our bodies, in our communities, in our halakas, in our lines for when we line up for making salat. I just seen this morning. I was making salat in the masjid, in my own masjid, and a brother lined up on the second line. He was way over to the wall. We had 7 brothers in the middle, and there was a gap that you could drive a truck through. He refused to close the gaps. These are the things that directly affect us as a ummah. Because shaitan comes through those gaps that we create. But I'm not here to bash us as a ummah, my brothers. Don't get it twisted. Because there's a flip side to this coin. And the flip side to this coin is that shaitan is always going to be an enemy of the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He's always going to be an enemy. Make no mistake about it. And you can never change the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You can't change it. So there's going to be good times. There's going to be bad times. The question is, what are you and I going to do in the midst of those good times? When things are going good, are we still going to give Allah His thanks and His praise as we should? Or are we going to forget about it and we're going to party all night? Even during Ramadan, when we're fasting, we break our fast, and after we get done eating, do you know how much food we throw away? All of these things have an effect, my brothers. These are the things that have a direct effect on the ummah as a whole. The smaller things that we overlook, that we brush up under the rug. We have a responsibility as Muslim men to respond, whether with your hands, whether with your tongue, or with your heart. Do we even have it in our heart to respond? Because there's something that we can do. There's always something that we can do as Muslims. Because Allah promised us always a way out of every difficulty. And the beginning of turning, or the beginning of getting out of that difficulty, is to focus your attention first upon Allah. Always focus your attention upon Allah. That is the first avenue, and that is the first door of success. There's so many things that we could be doing to help our brothers and sisters. I'll give you a few, just to say the least. Number one, when the muadhin, when he stands up doing any prayer that you make, and he calls out the adhan, in between that time and the iqamah, raise your hands to Allah. Is this not a time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us through Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that this is a time when your dua will be accepted? When you're traveling on those business trips, when you're going to and fro, wherever you may be going, when you're traveling, isn't this a time to make dua? When you are in sujood, doing your own prayers or your own salat, when we are the closest, or supposed to be the closest to Allah at this moment, isn't this a time when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says He's the nearest to His slaves? We have to remain conscious of these things. We do. We may not be in a situation where we can offer the direct help, but my brothers, we can always help. We can always do something. And don't ever underestimate the power of dua. Don't ever underestimate the power of dua, but we just have to make sure that we understand who it is we're calling upon. Allah says, وَلِلَّهِ الْأَسْمَاءُ الْحُسْنَى فَادْعُوا بِهَا. He says, to Him belongs the most beautiful names. So call upon Him by them. Call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by those names. That's what He says. But how are we going to call upon Allah if we don't know Him? Again, back to that. My brothers, there's always something that we can do. There's always something that we can do. But we should not continue to look in the direction of other than ourselves, to point the finger and put blame where blame doesn't belong. Because we also have a reality here. You see, I'm not here, my brothers and sisters, to necessarily say what may feel good, because the truth doesn't always feel good. But I am here to say what I feel is the truth wholeheartedly. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, more or less, and we know this, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions that who we have to lead us as the ummah of Muhammad, wherever we're at on the planet, our leaders are a direct reflection of who we are. Are they not? Didn't Allah say you will get the leaders that you deserve? So we have to ask ourselves, what do we want in our leaders? Also, don't we understand that what we do and the bad that touches us, it is from our own hands. Have we forgotten? Or in the midst of anger and confusion, because out of anger and confusion, it's easy to point the finger and blame. It's easy. We have to be level-headed. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says, La dara wa la dirar. He says, do not harm and do not what? Do not be the cause of harm. Do not harm and don't be the cause of harm. My brothers and sisters, we as Muslims, just like anyone else, and I say this unapologetically, we have the right to defend the honor and the blood of every single Muslim that's breathing. We have the right to defend the honor of every single Muslim breathing, man, woman, and child. Likewise, we also have the responsibility as men and as Muslims that those who are under our care, that we give them the same protection as well, which means that their lives, my brothers and sisters, are not any less valued than ours. We don't spill the blood of people who are non-Muslim, or nor do we fight people who are non-Muslim unless what? Unless you fight me. Then I have a right to protect myself. And let me be politically correct here, brothers. What I'm saying is the same thing that you are seeing said on the TVs. That those people who are attacking Muslims, saying that they are going after a group or a body of people who have been gathered together to fight for whatever reason and however they want to frame it. Because see, I come from a certain type of element of background. I don't speak on things that I don't know anything about. So when it comes to Hamas, I can't give you anything about who Hamas is. I'm from Oklahoma. But what I do know is that if you touch my Muslim brother and my Muslim sister, I'm going to respond. Because I have a right to. And you do too. If someone kicks your door down and they come inside your home, you have a right to defend your home. And you have a right to defend your body. And the body of Muslims is hurting and they're in pain right now. And they need some defense. What are we going to do as Muslims? How are we going to defend them? Just by sitting around drinking coffee and smoking shisha? No. We need to get up off the couch. We need to perform 2 rakats to Allah. After every single prayer, my brothers, that we make, every prayer, every single salat that we make, we call upon Allah and ask Allah to liberate them. However he sees fit. I said that about Hamas because I say this. I'm not here to bash no one. What I'm trying to say here, my brothers, is that we don't kill innocent people. It's against Islam. We have integrity as Muslims, as men, as servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, not to harm the blood of anyone, whether Muslim or non-Muslim. We don't do it. Why? Because we believe in La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. That's what we stand on. And if we love that and we are connected to that, that means that you cannot harm innocent people, women, children, old, non-combatants. There's rules to confrontation, is it not? There's rules. But when we, my brothers, when we allow our emotions to get in the way of doing what's right, then we go overboard. It happens. We go overboard. We start doing things that doesn't reflect what being a Muslim should do. And we have to be, remember, we have to speak the truth, my brothers, even if it's against our own selves. Even if it's against our own selves, there's rules to confrontation. And Muslims of all people, we are known historically to preserve those rules. But remember what Allah says. He says when they gain the upper hand over you, they will stretch forth their tongues and their hands, and they will do harm to you greater and more severe than anybody can even imagine. And it's happening. We don't have to apologize or be licking the boots of politicians, lawmakers. My brothers, have we not forgotten? I may not be able to come back here after this khutbah, but I'm going to say it like it is right now. The only law that is legal is the law of Allah. I'm saying it right here in Texas. The only law that is legal is the law of Allah. What do you want to be governed by? Do you want to be governed by the justice that Islam gives? Because remember, Islam is not a man-made system. This is a system that has been granted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that consists of rules and regulations and rewards and punishment. And when you violate those rules, then we mete out the punishment according to the justice of Allah, not your desires. So yes, my brothers, we are hurting. Yes, we're feeling the pain. Yes, we're angry. Yes, we want to respond, but we have to be smart about it. And let's not stop talking or doing something about it. This ain't some issue to be swept up under the rug or act like it's not happening. I didn't come here to talk about making wudu. We need to talk about what's going on, and we need to do something. And let me tell you something about the definition of insanity. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. So just remember that. I'm not a scholar. So I can't say whether you can or whether you can't go vote. But me personally, let me make this clear. You're not going to see me voting for anybody. Wallahi, you will never see me vote or cast a ballot to vote for anybody. Why? Because how foolish would it be to go do the same thing over and over and over and the same outcome? There's no justice for you. They're already talking about implementing another Muslim ban whenever certain legislators or people, if they get reelected. They already promised it and said that they would do it. What makes you think they won't do it? They already did it. You see, I come from a neighborhood, my brothers, that they can't fool me. We're used to it in my neighborhood, as many of you are too. I can't sit here and act like my neighborhood is I can't, there's no way, shape, form, and fashion that I can compare my neighborhood to Gaza. Those little bitty girls and those little bitty boys right now who are standing up throwing rocks at tanks, they got more heart than everyone in America put together right now. You got men, you got women, you got children, they are dying right now. As we speak and as we sit here comfortably, doesn't it pain your hearts? Doesn't it cause us to reflect, to look at one another and ask ourselves, what are we going to do about it? And I'm telling you, writing a letter, dear Mr. President, it's not going to help. Or dear Mr. Congressman, it's not going to help. Because this is a choice that you have to make inwardly. What are you going to accept as your authority? What are you going to accept as your law? Who are you going to accept as the authority figure? Huh? Ask yourselves this. Now, like I said, I didn't say you can't go vote. I'm just saying I'm not going to go vote. Because like I said, I come from a community, and many people like me in backgrounds that I come from, they ain't never helped us in our communities. They haven't have done one thing. A couple weeks ago, Gaza had 1 million plus. You know how many people's in Gaza right now? Barely 100,000. People displaced, man. Children taking baths in the Mediterranean, drinking water that is poisonous to drink.